Hi everyone, welcome to Crafting with Giulia. I'm Giulia and I'm so glad you tuned in today. Today's video is all about gingerbread hugs and peppermint kisses. This video is in collaboration with my new friend Jackie from Crafting in Mimi's World. So after you've viewed my video, go on over and show her some love, tell her I sent you. Her link is in the description box below this video. I don't know what it is about these little fellas that I love so much, but I love anything gingerbread. So I am so excited to bring all of these ideas to you today. Let's get started. If you enjoy my video, please hit the like button and leave me a comment. I love to get feedback from my viewers. Also, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you can be notified of all my newly released videos. Also, feel free to follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and I invite you to join my Facebook group called Crafting with Giulia's Creative Community, where you can be part of my crafting family. All of those links are in the description below this video. Before we begin, I want to explain that this is not difficult. For those of you who have a sewing machine, great. It is just a straight stitch. So even if you don't know how to sew, it's just a simple straight stitch. As long as you have a sewing machine, you just run it through the sewing machine. It's a straight stitch. For those of you who don't have a sewing machine, you can glue all these pieces together. You do not have to sew them. And the things that are hand stitched, I will show you exactly how to do it. So please don't be intimidated because sewing is involved. This is a fun project, and that's what crafting should be. It should be fun. So let me go over my patterns. The patterns are in a link in the description below this video. You will find a link to the patterns. Just copy those patterns, print them out on hard cardstock, and cut the pattern out and then lay it on your fabric. Now, I found this fabric at Joann's. It's perfect for this project because it's gingerbread, and you can get this at Joann's. So what you're going to do with the pants, now this is for the pants, and I explain on the pattern. Now, because this was too big to fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I had to do it in 2 pieces, but you will see that I say tape here. So this piece that looks like that, you are going to tape to the other side of the pants. All right, and this is the part you're going to put on the fold, and you want to cut 2 of these on the fold. So that's what I did. So I have 2 that I cut on the fold. So I folded my fabric, place this on the fold, and trace around, and do that twice. Okay, that's the pants. Then for the mittens, you're going to cut 4. So I doubled my fabric. I'm cutting 2 for the left hand and 2 for the right hand. Okay, that's that. For the shoes, you're going to cut 2. You're going to place this part on the fold of the fabric, and you're going to trace around. Okay, and that's what it looks like, and I cut 2. And then the sole, you're just going to cut 1 each. So you're going to cut 2, 1 for the right and 1 for the left. And then for the sleeves are a basic square. It's a 5-inch square. Okay, so there's no pattern for that. It's just a 5-inch square. And then for the jacket, again, there's no pattern for it because it's just an 18-inch long by 4 inches wide. And that's what you're going to cut. Okay. Now, let's go to the shoe base. And I want to show you how I make my shoe base. You're going to need some cardboard, and you're going to need a dowel of some sort. I'm just using chopsticks because it works for me. And you're going to need some kind of weight. Now, I use these nuts and bolts for weight, but you could put stones, you could put anything that you think will make some kind of a weight so that your doll stands up and doesn't fall over. So you're going to take your pattern for the shoe, the sole of the shoe. You're going to lay it on some cardboard, but you want to cut a little smaller than the pattern. All right, your cardboard piece should be a little smaller than the pattern. and I cut out 3 pieces and I glue them together. So we're just going to glue these all together. Okay, like that. And now with a center punch, I'm going to make a hole in the heel. Now you don't want it to be too far from the edge. You want it to be right in the middle of the heel. So about right there, I'm going to make a hole. And then taking my scissors, I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that my dowel will fit through. Okay, so that should fit. Okay, you want it to be snug. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in the hole, and I'm going to put my dowel through. Okay, just like that. So now I'm going to take some nuts and I'm going to put it right over the dowel and secure it with some glue. And this will provide the weight for the back of the doll. And then for the front of the doll, because you don't want it to be tipped over that way, I'm just going to use this bolt. And I'm going to glue that to the front like that. Okay, again, like I said, you could use stones, you could use anything that makes a weight. Okay, so that's the base of our shoe. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew my pattern, but again, like I said, you can glue them. So this is what I'm going to do. So for the sole of the shoe, you're just going to cut that out. You're going to cut the pattern out. For the shoe, I am just going to sew here on this line here. Okay, and if you're gluing it, that's where you're going to glue it, right on that line. And then you're going to turn it right side out. And I'll show you that after I sew those pieces. With the mittens, again, I am going to leave this part open. I'm just going to sew around the mittens and leave that part open. With the pants, now, what you want to do with the pants is you want to fold this part up and you want to make a hem. Okay? So that's what you're going to do first. You're going to make a hem on both of these pieces. And then what you're going to do is only sew here. On both pieces, only sew here. Okay, so my top of the shoe is sewn. I just sewed around here. Now we're going to take the bottom and you're going to pin it to the bottom and you're going to sew all the way around. Okay. Now if you're not sewing, you can also glue it. You're just going to glue the bottom all the way around and then turn it right side out. For the sleeves, you are going to sew a seam. You're going to fold this in half and you're going to sew a seam, a 1/4 inch seam down the side. Then you're going to make it flat and you're going to sew a seam this way. So it's going to look like this. So here's my seam and then I folded it flat and you sew there and then turn it right side out. Okay, for the mitten, just sew around and leave this part open and then turn it right side out. And now for the pants. Now you see that I made the hem on the top and bottom and I sewed only the crotch. That's this part here. Actually, that's the leg. Okay, now we're going to sew the crotch. So we're going to turn this one of them right side out. And you're going to put it inside the other leg so the right sides are together. And you want these seams to line up. Okay, so everything lines up. And now you're just going to sew this U. So you're going to start here and you're going to sew around to here. Okay? So that's the U. That's what you're going to sew. Okay, so the sole of my shoe is sewn on, and now I'm just going to turn it right side out. And I'm just going to use a little chopstick to straighten out the seam. Okay, then we're going to take the base of the shoe and you're just going to put it right through the top. Okay, so that's the shoe. And now we're going to stuff it with some polyfill. You're just going to take it and put it through the top of the shoe. Okay, and there's your shoe. Looks like the other one. Okay. Then for the sleeve, I'm going to take my fabric turning tool and turn it right side out. Straighten out the seams. Then I'm just going to stuff it a very little bit, just to give it some form. I don't want there to be too much stuffing in the sleeves, otherwise he'll look too rigid. Okay, and then we're going to take the mitten and do the same thing. So I'm going to put the tool inside. And then use the chopstick to get the thumb. Okay, and then we're going to stuff. Okay, and then we're going to put it in the sleeve. Now you have to be careful here because you have a right and left hand. So this is our right hand because that's the seam. This would be the right hand. The thumb faces forward. So that is our right hand. So we're going to make the left hand. So the seam has to face the body and the thumb has to face front. So that's going to be our left hand. And that's how I'm going to put it in. All right, so we're just going to put that in there like that. And I'm going to glue that in there. Okay, so there's our right and left hand. Okay, then for the pants, we are now going to turn them right side out, and we have our pants. Now I know they look big, but we're going to run a stitch around the bottom and the top. And we're going to pull it closed, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But there's our pants. To make the cuffs for the sleeves, I took a piece of white felt, which is 6 inches long and 2 inches wide, and I am just going to now fold it in thirds. So I'm going to fold this half over. Okay, now to attach the body, we are going to take a 6-inch styrofoam ball, and I am going to make holes in the bottom with the dowels. So that's where you want the legs to be in the middle of the ball. So that's where I want my legs to be. So now I'm going to shoot some glue up there, and we're going to put the legs inside the ball. Okay, now we're going to take a needle and thread, and we are going to do to this leg what I did to this one already. Now I made a stitch around the bottom, which I'm going to pull once we get it on the doll. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the needle and thread through the hem, and now you just want to come over, go up, up and down. Just keep going around, just like that. Okay, we're going to go in, around, in, around. Okay, now we're just going to put the pants on the doll. Okay, now for the bottom, you're going to now pull this string so that it closes up. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with the other side. So you're going to pull this string, and you're just going to pull it tight. Okay, so our pants are done. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with this top. We are going to cinch the waist so that we can pull it closed. So again, with my needle and thread, we're just going to go in here and just do the same thing. Go in and around. Now I am going to put some glue there so that I know it won't move. Just put a little glue around the top. Okay, so far, that's what we have. Okay, we're going to move on to the jacket. So you're going to take your jacket and we're going to make a little curve at the top. Just a little curve like that at the top. And we're going to put it around the body. And those two pieces should meet just about. Okay, and that's our jacket. Okay, so we're going to now glue that and this part here, we're just going to bring it around and glue it to the top of the ball. Okay, now we're going to take the arms and we're going to glue that to the body. So with the seam facing the body, take a little bit of glue and put it right at the shoulder. Okay, now for the head. You're going to take a 5-inch styrofoam ball and a tan sock. Now all the products that I'm using are in a link in the description below this video. I got them all on Amazon, so the links will be in the description. So you're going to take the sock and you're going to cut the top part of it off, leaving the heel on. And we're going to take the sock and we're just going to cover the ball. Put it right over the ball. Okay, like that. and that's the head. So now we're going to cut that about right there. And now we're going to sew this piece. Actually, I've got to cut a little bit more. And now we're going to sew that piece. Okay, so you're just going, again, you're going to take your needle and thread, go through, and just keep going around. Okay, just pull it closed. Now you're just going to sew it, making a cross, going across this way, go across this way, and we're just going to now pull it closed and knot it so that it stays closed. Okay, so that's our head. So now we're going to put the head on. Now this part doesn't matter because we're going to put a baker's hat on, so that is going to be covered. So we are now going to put the head on, and I am going to secure it with some toothpicks. So I'm going to stick 2 toothpicks on this side and 2 on this side. Okay, we're going to glue them in there. Put a little glue on the top because now we're going to put the ball over it. Okay, so our head is on. Now we're ready to draw the face. So what you will need is some blush. You will need some chalk markers. These are the earth tone chalk markers. I got these, I think I got these at Marshall's, but I will look online if Amazon sells them. They're lottidotty.com, www.lottidotty.com, and it's Lottie Dotty chalk markers. And I'm also using my micron markers, number 5 and number 8, and a little bit of acrylic paint. So let's start by blushing up the cheeks. So I'm just going to take regular blush, and I want to rosy up the cheeks. Okay, now we're going to make the mouth. So I am going to take my number 8 micron marker, and I am going to make the mouth. I'm just going to start here and just draw. I'm going to just freehand it. Okay, now we're going to make a collar because we want to cover all this. So I have a 6.5-inch oval. So you're just going to make an oval, 6.5-inch oval. So it's an oval of 6.5 inches long and 4.5 inches wide. And this is just a template that I've had. Okay, so I'm just going to now cut that. Okay, now we're going to take that and we're going to now fold it lengthwise in half, and you're going to cut it. Okay, now you're going to take these two pieces with a needle and thread, and you're going to sew just keep going around like this. So sew in and out. And then when you get to the end, you're going to take your other piece and continue on without cutting it. Just continue on, going in and out, same thing. Okay, now we're going to put it on the doll, and leaving the needle and thread on there. You're going to find the back, and we're going to glue these two pieces together right at the back. Okay, now we're going to bring these pieces hold it closed a little bit, and you want to make sure these pieces touch in the front. Okay, and now we are going to sew these two pieces closed. Okay, so there's our collar. And now we're going to close up this area here, and we're just going to embellish it with a sprig of holly or whatever you happen to have. If you have a pine sprig or a holly or a button, anything you like, you could put a bow on it, but I'm going to put these little frosted flowers on it. Okay, let's make the baker's hat. So you want to take a piece of cardboard and you want to measure the circumference of his head. And you want it to be a little bit bigger than the head. So I measured it, and my head comes out to 16 inches. That's with the give. So I cut my cardboard at 16 inches long and 1 inch wide. And then I cut a piece of white felt, which is 16 inches long and 2 inches wide, because we are now going to cover the piece of cardboard. So I'm just going to put some glue on the cardboard, and we're going to roll the ends in. So I cut a 12-inch circle of white felt, and we are going to just take a needle and thread, and we're going to stitch around the whole perimeter of the circle, just going in and out like this. Okay, then we're just going to pull it closed just a little bit, and then we're going to glue it to the inside of the band. So I am going to knot it right there. And then we're just going to bring it up, and we're going to glue that all to the middle part of the band. So we're going to put the glue right in this part here. Okay, so the hat is done. It's all glued. And now I'm going to add a little red rickrack to it. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. And I'm just going to put a little rickrack just to give it a little color. Now for the pastry bag, we're going to use a real pastry bag. So I'm just going to snip the end, and I'm going to glue a pipe cleaner in the end to make it look like there is icing coming out. So I'm just going to glue that in there. Okay, and then we're going to fill it with polyfill and make it look like And then I'm going to make the tip by making a little cone. So I'm going to take a square and I'm going to make a little cone like that. Glue it. Okay. I'm going to take some ribbon and some greenery again, and I'm just going to put it on his shoes. For this project, I am going to use a regular coffee can that I took the label off and cleaned it up, and one of these clear plastic ornaments that you get from Dollar Tree. This is a 3-inch ornament. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to apply a matte clear enamel on both the ball and the coffee can, and that will just give it a protective finish, a matte finish, so that the paint will adhere to both the ball and the can. Now, after I do that and it dries, I am going to paint the can with this Rust-Oleum chalked matte paint. It's in chiffon cream. And I'm going to spray paint the ball with this Rust-Oleum satin enamel. And this is called, the name of it is French Beige. Okay, so my can is dry. I ended up putting 2 coats on it. And my little gingerbread, I painted the face. Now I'm going to do a little distressing on the can. So I'm going to dry brush some paint on. This is maple syrup. So I'm just going to put a little bit in my cup here. And we're just going to dry brush it on. So I'm just going to take a little brush here and take off the paint, and just take the can and we're going to just lightly brush it on, make it look like. I am going to take this graphic that I downloaded from Pinterest. Let me take my paint off before I make a mess. Get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is, with some water, I'm going to go around it with a brush and water, and just go around and wet the ends. And then I'm going to tear it, because I don't want a straight cut. I want it to look like it's old. Here's our image. So now I am going to get a little Mod Podge, which I have in this cup here. And we're going to coat the back, and then I'm going to put it on the can. I don't want it to be on the seam. I want the seam to be in the back. So we're going to put it right there. So I'm going to put a little Mod Podge, particularly on the ends. Make sure I get all my ends. Okay, and now we're going to put it on the can. Okay, so it looks like that. Okay, now I got a piece of styrofoam that I'm going to glue it to the bottom of the can so I could put my florals in there. And that's done. Tell me what you think. During my last visit to Dollar Tree, I picked up this breadboard. And when I saw it, I knew immediately what I wanted to do with it. So I came home and I drew out a head and hands for my little gingerbread face with the hands. So I traced my pattern onto some tan felt. I'm using, this color is called Cashmere Tan. I traced my pattern, there's the head, and so you're going to cut 2 of the head and 4 of the hands. So I doubled my fabric, so there's 1 and there's 2, and you're going to sew all the way around because we're going to open it from the back because since it's going to be placed on the board, you're not going to see the back, so it's okay if we have a seam in the back, and that's where we're going to stuff it. So let me cut my pieces. We're also going to need, well, you're going to draw eyes. I fortunately have this that I had in my stash. I believe I purchased something with the M&M's logo on it, and I got this for free. These are actually M&M faces. So I'm going to use this one to go on my gingerbread. But you can draw out the face. You can use black buttons. You can use beads. You can draw them in yourself. There's so many different things. You can use felt, just cut out little circles and use felt for the eyes, anything. And then I'm going to use this pink bead for the nose. And again, you can use anything that you like. You can even draw it. You can use a regular bead. You can use a button. You can use brads. So many things you can use. You're going to also need some type of ribbon. I have this ribbon that I thought was very appropriate because it's got gingerbread on it. You're going to need some blush because we're going to rosy up the cheeks. And you're going to need puffy paint. That's how I'm going to make the hair and the little zigzag that goes along the hands. So if you don't have puffy paint, that's okay. You can use white felt. You can draw it in with white marker. You can use rickrack. There's plenty of things you can use. Okay, so let me go sew my pieces and I'll be back to show you how to put it all together. Okay, so my pieces are all sewn. These two I already did. So let me show you how I did it. So you're going to take your piece, it's sewn all the way around, and you are going to take your scissors, and you're going to make a little slit in the back. Now you want to just get the top fabric. You don't want to go through to the other side. Just get the top fabric and make a little slit like that. Okay, make sure you just have the top of the fabric and not this side. So now I'm going to use my fabric turning tool. You can turn it however you turn your fabric, but I use this tool because it's just such a great tool to use. It's so fast and easy. You just take the stick, you push it. Now if this was thinner fabric, it would go right through the tube and you would just turn your fabric inside out. But being that it's felt, it's a little thicker, so it's a little bit more difficult to push through the tube. So I just do it this way. I put it through and that's how I turn my fabric out. Then I just take my stick and I go around the seam to straighten the seam out. Okay, and that's how I turn my fabric out. So now we're going to stuff it. Take a little polyfill and we're going to stuff. Okay, and now to sew up this hole, we're going to do the ladder stitch, which is you just put your needle at the end there, and you're just going to go from side to side. So you're going to put it through there, go to the other side and grab it. Just go side to side. And when you pull it, it will pull close. Okay, that's it. Okay, now we're going to put the eyes on. All right, and then we're going to sew the nose on. So I'm going to take my needle and thread. And being that the back is going to get glued onto the board, we can go in through the back. So I'm just going to go in through the back to where I want the nose to be. Okay, then we're just going to take some blush. And rosy up the cheeks. Okay. And then before we glue it on, we're going to put the puffy paste, puffy paint, sorry, puffy paint on the head. So okay. Meantime, while that's drying, I want to do a little decoration around the border. So I'm just going to put, I'm just going to draw like a little stitch. Looks like a little stitch. So I'm just going to take a black marker and just go around and make it look like a little stitch. Okay, we're ready to put our little guy together. So I'm going to glue the head to the board. Now, one thing I have to mention is when you use the puffy paint, you can put it on like this so that it looks like it's that confectionery sugar coating. Or if you heat it, it gets bubbly. So it could also look like snow. So that's one thing I forgot to mention. All right, now we're going to just make a bow. So I took a piece of ribbon and I'm just going to fold it and scrunch it up in the middle. We're going to put that on the head, but I think that's too big, so I'm just going to cut it. I'm going to put a piece of felt around the center. And it's done. I'm going to be making a gift bag with a gingerbread theme. So I am going to be using this t-shirt transfer paper from Avery. And this is for light fabrics. So what I did was I went on Pinterest and I found this image, and I printed it out on my inkjet printer. I sized it to the way I wanted it. I wanted it to be the full page. And then what I did was I flipped it horizontally. You must flip it horizontally to get the image so that when you flip it over to iron it, it will come out the right side. So you flip it horizontally and then you print it. And I am going to iron it on with my heat press, my Cricut heat press. You can use a regular iron. The instructions say that not to put it on an ironing board and to actually use something flat like a piece of wood. So I am going to put this inside the bag and I'm going to iron it on like that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut out my image to where I want to take all this part off. So I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, now I'm going to eyeball it, and I'm just gauging by where the handles are. I'm guessing this is the middle. I want it to be a little bit lower. Right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my iron. So my heat press is all ready, and I am going to iron it on for 30 seconds, like the instructions say. So let's see how that works. So I put the temperature to 360 degrees, and I put the timer on 30 seconds. So I'm just applying light pressure. Okay, and now I'm going to move it over and do this side. I'm just going to lift the end just to test it a little bit, see if it went through. Sometimes you have to put more heat on it, which I think I'm going to have to. Okay, let's see how this came out. So I made this little guy using magic mold clay from Dollar Tree and a gingerbread cookie cutter. And now I'm just going to paint it with this apple barrel acrylic paint. The color is caramel. Okay, we're ready to finish up our little gingerbread guy. So I'm just going to take this thread here and make a little loop so that we can hang it. All right, and then I'm going to use puffy paint to decorate him. So what I do first, because sometimes it squirts out and I will ruin my project, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put it on a piece of paper and make sure it comes out right. So I'm just going to make little squiggly lines. I'm taking a plain gift box and I'm going to give it a coat of chalked paint. It's from Rust-Oleum and the color is Chiffon Cream. So now I'm ready to put on a layer of this weathered crackle glaze because I want to give it an old crackled look. Okay, and now we're going to let that dry for about an hour, 1 to 4 hours. Now I'm going to put on a coat of red acrylic paint. This is called Holiday Red by Craftsmart. I put a little in my cup here, and we're going to go over the crackle paint. Okay, you can see crackle already. So we're going to let that dry a bit and see how that comes out. Oh, I already see it crackling. That looks great. Okay, let's do this. Look how nice that came out. It's all crackled. So now I printed out 2 images because I'm going to use one that I am going to Mod Podge onto the box. So let's cut this one out. Now these images I get off of Pinterest. So when you go on Pinterest, just put in a search for gingerbread transfers, or I don't know, just put in gingerbread and you'll find all these cute little images. I think they are just so adorable. I could never paint them like this. So it's just easy to print them out on my printer. I size them the size that I want, and voila. So I'm just going to cut this one out, and we're going to Mod Podge her onto the box. You know, I always decorate my gift boxes, and people tell me that that's the gift in and of itself, is the box, because it's a keepsake. No one's going to throw out the box that you decorated. So here's our little girl. So I'm going to take some Mod Podge and we're just going to coat the back. Make sure we get all of the ends. It's easier if I laid this down on a piece of wax paper, but I didn't do that. So we're just going to have to go with the flow. Make sure you get all your ends. That's important because it has to stick to the box. So we're going to lay her right down. I'm just going to eyeball it. And we're going to smooth her out. Make sure all the ends are down. Okay. So far, that's what we have. Now, we're going to take the other image and I am going to cut out just her hands and the sign. We're going to make this a little 3D-ish. This is taken from my scrapbooking days. I started as a scrapbooker in the days when I had the first Cricut that came out. I don't know if you guys remember the first personal Cricut. And the Cricut cartridges, we've come a long way since then. But anyway, so I have my cutout here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these adhesive foam circles and we're going to put those on here. These I got at, I believe, Michael's. You can get them at any craft store. So we're going to take some dots and we're going to just put them on the back. Put 2 there. And this is just to give it a little 3D bump. Okay, then we'll just peel off the backs. You can tell it's getting cold outside because the static is unbelievable. Everything sticks to you. Okay, so all of the adhesive backings are off, and now I'm just going to put that right on top, and we're going to give that a little 3D look. Like that. Okay. And now we're going to take some puffy paint. This is white puffy paint. And I'm going to embellish just to 3D the whole lines around her face, around her hands. And her feet. Now this puffy paint, I am using like this because I just want it to be a 3D. But if you put a blow dryer on this, it bubbles up. But I don't want that look, so we're not going to do that. Then I'm going to use this for the eyes. Just give her a little gloss on her eyes. Okay, and then this is from the old days. This is called Stickles, and the color is Candy Cane. I used to use this a lot. I'm not even sure if they sell this anymore, but I will try to find it and leave a link in the description in this video. all the products I use, if they're on Amazon, it will be in a link in the description box below this video. Another thing that I used to use a lot is this. This is called Flower Soft. And this is what the packaging looks like. Flower Soft. So how you use this is you take some glue, and I'm using Aleene's tacky glue, and we're just going to put some glue on her hat. Okay, and then we're going to take the Flower Soft and we're just going to put it right on her hat and kind of smush it down in there. That gives it a little furry look. Okay, let's smash that down in there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the little pom-pom on her hat. Okay, so I'm just going to shake off the excess. Okay, and that's what that looks like. Okay, and then with the puffy paint, I'm just going to go over the little dots that are on her hat and her clothes. Okay, and now we're going to embellish her hat. Let's put a little sprig of holly, little tiny sprig. We'll put it like that. Yeah. Okay, and there's our box. A little gift box. What do you think? I think it's cute. Tell me what you think. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again real soon. Happy crafting!